life, death, joy, pain, healing, and demise. All of these emotions run through any given hospital. But what about abandoned ones? Do these emotions leave with the patients and staff, or do they tend to linger?
Now, we've been to a lot of abandoned hospitals, and they all look and smell pretty much the same. In fact, they all feel the same. A sense of dread, loneliness, and unfinished business.
So I took the crew on a trip to Yoakum, Texas, where one such hospital exists, except this one's a little bit different.
A local paranormal team has set up shop inside of the hospital due to its high levels of paranormal activity.
Come and explore the old Yoakum Hospital on this episode of Strange Curiosity. Yoakum, Texas. It's your typical small Texas town, complete with old-time charm, Friday night football heroes, and a lifestyle far from the hustle of the big cities. But it has a darker side. Just on the edge of town sits an abandoned old hospital, rotting with time. Within these dilapidated walls lies an unsettled presence. Some say harmless, but has left others running for their lives.
The history of this hospital began in the early 1920s. The Yoakum community needed a hospital, so they opened one. They created it, and it was a Huth Memorial Hospital. And then the nuns came in the 1930s and took over the place, and they ran it up until the 1980s. Then a corporation bought it, and it operated until the late 90s. In 94 to 95 is in that area is when it closed. Back in 2006, it was a haunted house, and then of course through the years, vandals have broken in and put the handprints on the wall, and it kind of adds to the atmosphere. But we think we had the psychic person in here one time. They said the spirits do not like that at all. We were looking for places to go, because every team wants some place to go. And we just happened to come across this place, and we found out who the owner was, and we petitioned them and asked them, can we come in and investigate the place? And they agreed. And then we said, can we come more often? And they said, well, sure, you can come as often as you like. They were very helpful and actually happy that somebody wanted to do something with the place.
I think this place is haunted because of the experiences we've had in here. There's so many, and something might be small, maybe one thing will happen at night, but they add up when you start thinking about everything that has happened. I do think it's haunted.
I've seen the things that have happened to other people, like I was standing right behind a lady watching her while she grabbed her back and felt like she got scratched, so I know she wasn't doing anything, and she lifted up her shirt and she had scratch marks on her.
There has been shadows on this floor. One time somebody saw a doctor. I don't know, I just think there's something up here.
One time we had a guest that was with us, and he didn't really believe in what we were doing, and he wanted to see for himself. He came up here and he got a little angry and raised his voice up on the second floor, and he come across with a bloody nose, and he left, and we haven't seen him since.
If somebody antagonizes spirits, something might happen.
Violent and angry spirits intrigue me, and while there was still a lot more work to do, this was all I needed to hear to get my motor running. So I went up to the third floor and I gave it a shot. I don't know who's up in this hospital, but now Brad Kling's up in this hospital, and I want to know what's going on up here. I want to know if you're just a patient of this hospital. Answer me now. They had some dude up here provoking, carrying on, acting like a big badass guy, and you punch him in the face. My face is right here. Take your best shot! Why you want to hang out in a rundown old hospital? I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds. When I walk out the door, I'm not coming back. Now that didn't seem to get any response, but what could cause such an aggressive spirit? Obviously, hospitals are the site of numerous traumatic deaths. It's almost as if the spirits have a post-traumatic stress disorder. but we wanted to find out if there was one instance of traumatic death that stood out above the others. Luckily, we found one. It was a warm spring day back in 1990, and the Yoakum Hospital was business as usual. It was full of doctors and nurses working their shifts, and a host of patients waiting to be seen. Little did any of them know they were about to experience a horrific crime. One of the nurses had an estranged boyfriend who suspected her of being with another man. This was apparently more than he could handle, so in an act of jealous desperation, he calmly walked to the front doors of the hospital with a gun to confront her. He made his way past the unsuspecting waiting room patients, proceeded to the nurse's station where she was on duty, confronted her, and an argument ensued. By the time the staff around her realized what was going on, he pulled the gun and shot her point blank in the head. He fled the hospital past terrified staff and patients, rushed to his vehicle, and quickly drove away. Later that day, the police captured him, but before he could stand trial, he hanged himself in his jail cell. So now we had a motive for a haunting. We just needed to find out if anybody has ever seen a nurse in the building. So we caught up with Gary Clinton to ask him this very question.
We've had some incidents where people have seen the full body apparition of a nurse. We had one young girl upstairs. She was in the nursery where the girl that got shot actually worked, and she was doing a reenactment by herself. We were down the hall, we could hear her talking. And all of a sudden she got just, you could tell in her voice she was scared to death. We went to talk to her and she said she had seen a full-bodied apparition of a young nurse blocking the doorway where she couldn't get out, and she just stepped back, and the investigator took a couple steps forward and she disappeared.
Now this was some great information that we could use to get started on. So I went to find Barry, brought him into the hospital, gave him a tour around just to show him some of the areas and hotspots that we wanted to cover during a more formal investigation. We caught something on a thermal device at the nurse's station that was absolutely amazing and beyond explanation.
So during the investigation, I decided to go down to the area where the nurse was murdered. I took the thermal camera and I was going to do a sweep, check out some things, and lo and behold, while I was focusing on this doorway, this image appeared. It was a silhouette of a person it looked like, and I was really focusing on it. All of a sudden, bam, it just explodes. This bright light happens, and then it goes away.
Now this burst of thermal energy that Barry was describing is very unusual. But what makes this more mind-boggling is that there was nobody in the room where this came from. Could this be the murdered nurse looking out over the abandoned hospital, seeking revenge? While Chris and John continued to investigate, I went to go find out more information about that area, and if anyone else has ever caught any tangible evidence of an entity up in that area. The following footage was captured by the old Yoakum Hospital investigation team. This was taken at roughly 3 in the morning when it was confirmed that nobody was in the building. You can clearly see a shadow moving from the left to the right. We could easily claim victory at this point and close the book on the old Yoakum Hospital, but we wanted to dig further. And in doing so, we found out that the hospital has some religious ties and some ghosts who may be tied to it as well.
Salvation always and everywhere to give you thanks through our beloved Son, Jesus Christ. He is the Word through whom you made the universe, the Savior you sent to redeem us, the salvation you sent to redeem us. By the power of the Holy Spirit, He took flesh and was born of the Virgin Mary.
There was the priest. There was one father here on site. He was in charge of everything, and he held mass here. He was stricken with polio in his early youth, and then he became ordained and came in here in the 70s. And he basically cared for the patients. Went around, did their spiritual needs and stuff, and took care of them that way. He had no medical facilities or nothing like that. He had no authority to do anything other than comfort them.
For our sake, he opened his arms to the cross. He put up to the end of death and revealed the resurrection. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Lift up your hearts.
It was every Saturday, he performed Mass, and they said it was packed house. He was loved. He was an avid ham radio operator. The nurses loved him. They picked on him. He picked on them. They would have wheelchair races up and down the hallway because he was riddled with polio, so he had to get around in a wheelchair. And as far as we know, and from the history of people telling us, everybody was very happy with him, and he seemed to be a happy person staying here at the hospital.
I do remember the priest. Actually went to Mass when he was here, down in the chapel on Saturday afternoons at 5 p.m. Went there for probably 3 or 4 years before he moved over to the new hospital, and then they stopped having Mass.
Nobody has reported seeing the priest here. Some people have claimed they've heard him. It sounds like a man saying something, but he's struggling to speak, and it's in the chapel. But no one knows for sure, because this is an unknown field that we're exploring.
Another staple of Catholic-run hospitals are nuns, who would often be the nurses or oversee the staff. And sure enough, this place may have one, still roaming the halls.
The Blue Nun is supposedly a nun that was here. We don't know what time period. We're going to assume the 40s and 50s. She operates up on the 3rd floor. She was a former nurse or somebody that had something to do with taking care of the patients. The 3rd floor was mostly nursery back then. The claim is that she was taking care of, she would come out and watch over the babies and stuff like that. If you make a lot of noise, she'll try to run you off or something. We may have captured a photo of her, maybe. We got some kind of blue mist in a doorway.
There's still happiness that's here for some of the people that are still here, that they're still running their regular lives, I believe. Still roaming the halls. And then there is death, that there isn't anger. There's still pain for some of these people.
Armed with this information, I sent Chris and John back out into the hospital to seek out more evidence. I put them on the 1st floor around the chapel to see if they can find anything related to a priest or a nun. A small incident did occur, which left us all scratching our heads.
So John and I were investigating the 1st floor hallway, and I was walking down the hallway and John was taking pictures of me. We had a laser grid shining up behind me, and he noticed something behind me, but I didn't know anything about it. But he was taking pictures and he told me to move. Keep moving different directions, move my hands and stuff, so I was doing that. And later on, we started looking at the photographs, and there was a shadow person behind me. And as we looked at every single one of the photographs, the shadow person was the same through every one of them, but I was moving, so clearly it wasn't me.
A nurse, a priest, and a nun. This sounds like the beginning of a joke about walking into a bar, but the Yoakum Hospital is far from a joke. In fact, its terrifying halls have yielded some of the best evidence to date that we have ever seen. We managed to capture a voice near the chapel that leads us to believe they're watching us. If we were able to gather this much outstanding evidence ourselves, there had to be other people out there who had similar experience at the old Yoakum Hospital. So we put our feelers out to find some. Sure enough, there was a paranormal team up the road in San Marcos who claimed to have a terrifying shadow on video from there. So we jumped into the car and all headed for San Marcos. I can easily say it was well worth the trip.
Me and I and 2 other team members were walking through the hallway. We had heard a noise towards the end of the chapel, where the chapel would be. So we started going through room, just, you know, with the cameras and taking pictures, see what we can catch. And as I was walking through one room, I panned to look across the hallway. With my camera, I caught an image at the end of the hallway, which was the shadow figure.
This 3-dimensional shadow person was caught in the middle of the daytime. Was this the priest, the nun, or the nurse? Or had we yet to encounter this entity? As we were leaving this interview, Norma showed us an EVP that they captured in the same area at roughly the same time, and it seemed to be offering us a warning.
You would think a chapel would be more of a peaceful, you know, place where you can pray and have some kind of calmness. And when I went in, I just felt sad. I wanted to, I felt like I wanted to cry.
We couldn't wait to get back to Yoakum to start in on another investigation. But this time, we were going to try to find specific details of who or what we were dealing with. We started on the 2nd floor, where the nurse was murdered. But before we got underway, I pointed out a little-known detail I just found out. Did y'all know that when the nurse was murdered, she was called out from the nurse's station? In reality, which is right here, this was the waiting room. This is where she was shot, and this was the entrance. The guy walked in here, shot her right here. They dragged her back to the ICU. That's where she died. Well, right down here,
I can see that stain.
They say that that's the blood stain, even though the carpet's been replaced since then. But every time they replace the carpet, that stain seems to come back.
Wow. The investigation at the Yoakum Hospital has been a big success so far. We've seen shadow people. We've had personal experiences. We've actually caught some images on the thermal camera. But now I want to do something a little different. I want to go back to basics, back to the way it used to be, myself and an audio recorder. All the technology, we're going to kind of throw it out the window. We're going to go back in there and try to find specific name, dates, who exactly are we dealing with, patients, doctors, why are they there? We got an old rundown hospital, why are they still haunting this place?
Are you still suffering? Are you glad the guy that murdered you hung himself? I guess he got his in the end. Does that make you happy or sad? I need y'all to speak up if I'm going to hear you. All I really want to know is, what's your name? I'm really big on putting a name to this activity. It really helps me out. In our field, we try to prove that the afterlife exists. So what's your name? I'm not sure if I'll be hanging out in this nasty room if I was a ghost. Do you want me to leave? Am I bugging you? Am I bothering you? We came to find out in just a bit that Barry was not bothering them. We caught an EVP upon review that opens up the doors to many more questions.
The old nurses here, hospital staff. Patience. Going into the hospital by myself paid off big time. We actually caught an awesome EVP. We don't really know why they said that. Maybe they're frustrated. Maybe they're trying to scream at us and we just can't hear them.
I think this place is haunted because of the traumatic things that happen in hospitals. Like sometimes maybe you'll get trapped in the afterlife, not exactly knowing what happened and wanting to find things out. And hospital would probably be where most deaths occur. So death is all around.
You've had people dying, you've had babies being born, you've had accidents, you've had trauma. I think that spirits might want to come back to this place.
There's so much of this we don't know. It's unknown. Nobody's an expert in this field. There's people that have a lot more intelligence and more knowledge than we do in this, but this hospital is a great lab for an experiment, and we like when other people share what we're trying to explore.
From the first moments of life to its last breath, the Oakham Hospital has seen it all, time and time again. The sands of time have taken its toll on this old building, but every moldy wall, every rusty pipe, every piece of broken glass has a story to tell. Is it the wandering spirit of a former priest? Is it the traumatized spirit of a murdered nurse? Or is it the stern presence of a protective nun? All it takes to find out is a little bit of a strange curiosity.